Hello, cats and kittens. Odiwa Jose Yanoshko. Welcome back to the Crisis Corner. Today we are in the Creative Corner for a second edition of our Creative Commentary series. The Creative Commentary is basically where creators like myself, Jose Loretti, remark on their creations, creative commentary, like a DVD creators commentary. Yes, creators commentary. So that's it. So basically, I'm going to do a deep dive on Intrepid issue 2. Hopefully, not too deep because I don't want to take a whole lot of your time. I don't like to hear myself talking so much. But giving my impressions on the work itself. This is created Intrepid issue. I should say chapter because I like the manga approach. This is Intrepid chapter 2. Title. This is the second chapter in the Heroes and Villains story arc, written by myself, art by Montos, brilliant artist. We did all of the first Intrepid story arc. Montos did the coloring for the cover, Oval Pro Studio, which would be Rob Richardson. Thanks for your work, Rob. Alan did the executive editor work. David Welcher, editor-in-chief, and that's about it. La Ballad of Santos Cadios, the Ballad of Fallen Saints. A lot of the work that was done in this issue this chapter, from my standpoint, was kind of subtle. The Ballad of Fallen Saints, English translation is La Ballad of Santos Cadios. We're talking about these two saints. This is a story of relationships. The backbone of any story to me is relationships. What do people mean to each other at any given time? And this is the first meeting between Joseph Paxson and Keith Dawson, two mainstays on the Intrepid team. I think of teams of any sort, be they musical, like the Beatles, Life is a Metaphor for the Beatles, a football team, a basketball team. There's always the glue people that hold it down, that hold it together. And especially when you think about sports, because I'm a sports freak, Nationals, you can't see that. Nationals, formerly known as the Redskins, you can't see that either. Anyway, I'm a sports freak, and on any team, you gotta have your captains or your leaders, and that leader usually needs in his crew somewhere a roughneck. When I say a roughneck, I mean a dude. If you the opposite of if you have a clean cut captain, which is basically Joseph Paxson, you're gonna need a counter, the opposite side of that coin. Somebody to do the dirty work. Somebody, like I say, sometimes you gotta have a cat in your crew that you ain't necessarily proud of, but you know that he's down, he's ride or die, got your back, whatever. Keith is that to Paxton. Of everybody in the crew, and the crew's gonna top out at about 8. If he's walking down that dark alley and you don't know who's on the other side, that's the cat that he's going to take with him. You know what I'm saying? These two have an understanding. They're right here. They understand each other well. And like I say, it's like that odd couple that just works. So like I say, this book in the whole is about relationships. And this is the beginning of the relationships between these two cats. The story to date, as you saw in chapter 1, this nameless man, and nameless at the time, escapes from a secure government facility, beats down over 100 and up to 140 people, beats them down, and walks out. The only word he says, aside from sleep, you have to read chapter 1 to really It's not hard to get caught up on because the first two chapters really there's not much dialogue in them for various reasons, but you have to read chapter one. All the only words that Joseph Paxson, the fellow to the left in this picture, says is basically sleep and Nadia, I'm coming. Hang on, Nadia, I believe it was, I'm coming. But we don't know his name, we don't know nothing. But he escaped, and we know that there's a search party going out to look for him. So the hunt is on. There's a little uh, thing he says there. The hunt's on. I'm not going to read all that, but the hunt is on. So that takes us to San Miguel. Again, subtle. Or not so subtle, depending on if you're a fan of Sergio Leone and his Man with No Name trilogy. Fistful of Dollars takes place, I believe it's Fistful of Dollars takes place in San Miguel, Mexico. That's a shout out to my man Sergio Leone. So I got my man Paxton wandering the back streets of San Miguel where he comes to this bar La Canción. This, again, subtle. I'm planting little seeds that are going to pay off in different areas. So this bar, as we're going to see as we go through the story, he's been there before. But we get into that. Drinking contest, which was very well illustrated by Montos. You know, you see them squaring off, staring each other down. They get into the drinking contest. My man loses, whatever. A bone of contention to me from critics. I mean, I caught a lot of, gas from critics talking about, the Spanish. There's no translation for the Spanish. No one can understand what's going on. All right, fine. Honestly, if you didn't know Spanish and you say "qua qua qua qua," right? The guy sitting down, he says "qua qua qua qua." Everybody's shocked, and then they start laughing. And then other guy comes and say "qua qua qua qua." You don't know Spanish, you don't understand. The next page. So you want milk, is that right? So that explains everything that happens on this page with one sentence. Okay, if you have a modicum of intelligence, you know what I mean? Boom, all of that's done. So they were laughing because they're hard drinking, vatos or whatever, and this guy coming in looking for milk, which is odd. Okay. So Keith basically tells him, you ain't gonna get no milk here. This is a joint for cats that gets drunk. Okay, he takes the liquor. He basically he asks for the liquor and pours it on his wound. So getting here to San Miguel, he was wounded by somebody. He wasn't wounded when he left the base. But on the way here, somehow he's gotten wounded, which kicks off the conversation between him and Keith. Now, apparently, he's traveled here to San Miguel to go to a church, which is a line that I actually like. He says he's looking for a church, and Keith, I hate to get off on my own stuff or whatever. You come to the wrong place, friend. No one believes in God. Solo en el diablo. You know what I'm saying? This is, I'm trying my best to get my Sergio Leone vibe on. In my mind, I'm thinking spaghetti western. So I'm kicking little lines like that. Anyway, so the backstory has to come in. You have to find out who this guy is and what's his aim, why did he escape, whatever. So we finally get his name is Joseph Paxson. If you had the trade, then you know that by now, but I'm just going over it for whatever. So he finds out that Keith finds out that he is a former member of Guardian, which is the United States branch of an agency that fights paranormals. Again, paranormals being anyone with superhuman abilities. And in the second wave universe where this story takes place, especially in the United States, there are no heroes. None. Okay, they are outlawed. They've been outlawed for 40 years, roughly. Instead of having heroes, you have agencies, which this man, Joseph Paxson, was part of. As you can see here, he was part of an agency that fought superhuman threats, evil superhumans. He was hanging out with his boys. After they finished the job, they got captured by some people who, as you can see here, took them and ripped them up and turned them into weapons of mass destruction. They were basically sold out. Okay. Someone sold him out. His whole team was captured. They were turned into these mind wipe weapons of mass destruction. The ones that survived, a bunch of them didn't make it, but that's what happened. So the incident occurred in the church on the outskirts of San Miguel. And his last remaining, as far as he knows, his last remaining teammate is this woman right here, Nadia Maria Chavez. And he's going back to get her. That's why he escaped from the base. Now that being held in a military base on U.S. soil implies that you were sold out by your own people. For what purpose, we don't know yet, but we're getting into that. So there you have the basis for the entire story, or at least this arc. I got to go back and find my friend before they do to her what they did to the rest of my friends. That's it. It's a rescue mission, a one-man rescue mission. And he's come to San Miguel to find her, but he needs help. So where does he look for help? Keith. Why? Again, some of this stuff is subtle. He says he's looking for it. When he explains this to Keith, he basically tells him, he doesn't even ask him, to be honest with you. He just says, she's in that church, and we're gonna need some weapons to get out. You know what I'm saying? And Keith, he's choking on it, man. He said, what do you mean we? Okay, I'm saying he just basically said, I'm going to avenge my friend and you coming with me. He never met this guy in a day in his life. And again, back to the subtlety. Keith, understandably, why should I help you? Paxton's response is, you're a good man, you have strength, help me. Now, what does he mean by that? You have strength. Keith takes it as he's taken aback, as if Paxton knows a secret. As we know, at least as we'll know by the end of this issue, Keith does in fact have superhuman abilities. Was that what Paxton was referring to? I'll tell you as the creator, no. He was talking about character. He doesn't know Keith from anybody, but when they walked into that bar, I'm going back a little bit. When he initially walks into the bar, where am I? Page, right here. Which is also another subtle thing. A guy walks into a bar. A lot of jokes start that way. Anyway, so he walks into the bar. Everybody turns around and looking, and then you get this little shot of these two eyeballing each other. He's looking at Keith. He's singling him out. Paxton is a fantastic judge of character, and which goes into another story, but he's an excellent judge of character, and he singled out a person that he wanted to ask for help. And he asked him for help because he saw a nobility in him. That if I had to ask anybody in this room, I need to ask this guy because he's probably the only one who would help. And he knew that intuitively. Keith, on the other hand, who is hiding out in Mexico, takes that to mean that maybe he's from the States and they found me down here and they're coming to take me back or something. He thinks he's in trouble. He's actually right, but he's not right for the reasons that he thinks. In walks his former teammate, the Applegate brothers. Wackiness ensues. They've come to take Paxton back to turn him into, or do whatever they wanted to do with him, period. From here, well, like I say, wackiness ensues. The action piece of this issue is the fight between Keith, Paxton, and the Applegates, which basically starts off, again, I go back to these subtleties. One of my little gags that I'm pleased with, which really works if it was animated or if it was live action, whatever, if you could see it visually. These two walk in. Keith's question, FBI? Paxton, no. MIB? No. Then you get that pause. On a mission from God, if you're familiar with the Blues Brothers, you'll catch that. Because they both, dress like, Blues Brothers, black suit, blah, 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 whatever. And so there's whatever. I like little stuff like that. And when another bit that I like is that when the first guy, some of the patrons of the bar try to intervene because they're loyal to Keith. Those are his patrons. He gets thrown out of the bar. Everybody runs out in a panic. The only people left is Keith, the Applegate brothers, Paxton, Keith, and the two waitresses. Why the waitresses are there, I can't remember, but they still there. Keith looks at Paxton again. These guys, I love their relationship or whatever. Two dudes that just met, they kind of click, you know. Keith looks at Paxton. Paxton says, I understand. I get it. And he walks out with the two waitresses. Now you would say he's protecting them because he doesn't want these two ladies to get caught up in this nonsense and get killed. Does Paxton know that he's coming back? Or is Keith saying, I gotta go and I'll be back in a minute? All he says is I understand, and Paxton understands why he has to leave, and that's the last you see of him. Wackiness ensues. Paxton gets into a fight. I like this. I like the shot of the beginning of the standoff. Again, this is Sergio Leone's Western stuff. The standoff begins. Paxton holds his own, which is actually quite impressive. Once, as we get further along in the series, and we see what these guys are capable of. But he takes the L because he can't beat him by himself. He's already wounded. He doesn't really have a shot. And then we get this little bit where Keith's handler, I'm sorry. The Applegate brothers handler is like he's got like this Palpatine type vibe to him. He's represented by these two eyes that you see as a reader, but technically is a disembodied voice that they hear. He just has a visual representation, but he basically they've beaten Paxton down, but Paxton is using this ability that he seems to have that you would see in issue 1, where he puts the guards to sleep, basically by telling them to sleep or saying the word sleep. And he tells the Applegate brothers to snap out of it. Whatever they did to you, remember who you are. Remember. And they start snapping out of it. But then the voice says, don't listen to him. Don't let him speak. Palpatine, whatever. So Boomer, one of the Applegate brothers, chops him in the throat so he can't speak. It looks grim. But then in comes our hero, Keith Dawson. Yay. So another thing, Keith has 2 weapons of choice. Pebbles, the gun he's holding in his right hand, and Bam Bam, the mace is sitting on his right hip. Eventually I'll probably get sued for that, but there's no such thing as bad publicity. More wackiness ensues. We learn a little something about the Applegate brothers because he fires on them. They take the hit, but what happens? They're adaptive. They adapt a shield to absorb the blow from Pebbles. They strike at him. He just takes the hit because he's not one of those 9 vulnerable types. So it's a standoff. Who's going to give first? If the Pebbles don't work, he whips out Bam Bam, goes to work, shatters the force field, sends one of the Applegates flying. Keith is a very, very capable fighter, extremely capable fighter. Everything seems to be okay, but then, again, they're adaptoids, adaptive. They level up. My comparison would be if you're familiar with Naruto, Orochimaru's curse seals. If you can't get it done at curse level 1, then you go up to curse level 2, blah, blah, blah. So they go up to the next level, they adapt, and they're still in trouble. Keith and Paxton are still in trouble. Paxton says, basically, we got to get out of here. And a running gag in the series is what Keith says next. The name is Keith Dawson, and you owe me a bar. What does that mean? He busts the floor open. They jump down into the hole. And he says, that's all, folks. Originally, as it was written, he was supposed to click a detonator in his hand. But I think we were running out of panel space. So I just put it in quotation marks and said, that's all, folks. Maybe it was like a audible prompt that triggers the bomb or whatever, but what you get next, boom. Again, well illustrated by Montos. He did a great job on the story. So the bar is demolished. They escape through this tunnel in the floor. You don't see them again until for a little while. But sadly, they did not kill the Applegate. Sadly, or whatever. The Applegate brothers apparently are still alive. There's more Spanish that people can't understand anyway. But basically, it's being said that, oh no, they're walking out of the flames. So, one says it's a miracle, the other guy says, nah, it's a disaster. So again, Palpatine kicks in. His voice, kicks in. They tell him that he's escaped master and he's found an ally. Then find them both, bring Paxton to me, and slaughter his friend. But kill these people first. Anyone who has seen him, leave no witnesses. Kill them all. Yes, master. Kill them all. And that's how that ends. That's the end of the Ballad of Fallen Saints. And we know that nothing good's going to come of this because the next episode or the next chapter is death scene. So something terrible is going to happen next. Off screen mainly, so don't worry about that. And then we got our little ads. Paranormal Protection Agency. Again, the agency that protects. There are different agencies across the world, the globe, but they fight superhuman criminals, terrorists, or whatever. And the one in the United States is called the PPA, Paranormal Protection Agency, a branch of which is Guardians. And there's an ad, Guardian Fugitive Retrieval, which Paxton used to belong to, him and his friends. Enlist today. We had a little domain and all of that stuff. So that's Joseph Paxton, Nadia Chavez, who he went to save, and a third fellow who will factor into the story later on. Am I my brother's keeper? So join Guardian and fight to say his urban defense. Stop Magneto and stop all those, evildoers, whatever. And another ad, I can't remember who did this. Rob or Ray, I can't remember exactly. No, that might even been, what's that? Whatever. Anyway, another ads that were in the back of the book. So that's the Ballad of Fallen Saints. Again, this is it begins the narrative of the spaghetti western feel because the entirety of this, or the majority of the story, the 7 issues, takes place in the desert. Now, initially, the story was to have an Akira type feel, that is, a person fighting against his friend who has been turned into a superhuman type monster. But it was supposed to be like in a Neo-Tokyo type background. But it was a little bit too much work to get that in, to get him to escape from a compound in the middle of nowhere and trek to a Neo-Tokyo type situation and then have this full-scale battle ensue, because I wanted to get an entire like army type situation in, an army, superheroes, mechs and stuff like that, and to bring them into a city for this big fight, it was too clunky. So I said, well, look, I love Westerns. I love that Western feel. Take it out into the desert. So I said, all right, we'll start in San Miguel and then trek south. So the actual battle takes place about 20 miles south from it, San Miguel. And that's the Ballad of Fallen Saints. So it's near and dear to my heart again because it picks up the beginning of, like you say in Casablanca, the beginning of a beautiful friendship. These two cats are inseparable through the story. And I just like that feel, And comics are about people, regardless if it's Xavier, Charles Xavier, Bruce Wayne, whatever. It's about people and what they mean to other people. And that's what Intrepid's about. So if you're into webtoons, the Ballad of Fallen Saints is on webtoons in webtoons format, which is vertical. Um, it's an interesting read. So we already have issues 1 and 2 in truncated forms on webtoons. So check that out. And if you're looking to pick up the series, we had a successful Kickstarter for the printing of the Intrepid Heroes and Villains trade paperback. Um, if we're going back to Kickstarter, I'll let you know. When we're going back to Kickstarter, I'll let you know. But you can get the book, the trade, and the individual issues either at Indie Planet, Spinwiz Comics, and somewhere else that I can't think of. I'll go on our website. Go to our website, c3comics.com. That's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to another edition of our creators commentary. Hopefully I can get a guest in somewhere, but otherwise, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Stay loose.